What's up, guys? Iceman here. So, Jehovah's Witnesses. All right. I remember a couple of years ago, I spent some time with them. They would come to my door. There was this guy in particular. He was a pretty nice guy. He was a smart guy, this and that, maybe a little loopy. But nonetheless, he would come to my door, talk to me about theological stuff, this and that, stuff that the Bible says. But of course, they have their New World Translation. But there are three problems that I've noticed with the whole Jehovah's Witness movement that I think are very, very startling. The last one, a lot of you guys probably won't agree with me on, and I just thought of the last one a few minutes ago. But the other two are pretty impactful. Because on one hand, they make some effort, right? You got to give them some credit for that. The whole go around and make disciples thing or whatnot that Jesus said. These people are determined to go and knock on the doors of potentially vulnerable widows, right? And other people. But yeah, I was just kind of joking, but they go door to door and they're diligent with that, right? And they'll talk to folks about theological stuff or whatever they want to talk about. In fact, there are four things that might be wrong with the whole Jehovah's Witness movement. I just thought of another one. Okay, so number one, on one hand, these people, I learned some things from them. I learned about the whole millennial reign of Christ thing. I didn't really know about that before. This is just something that people don't talk about in the church. And I learned more about the new heaven and new earth, right? The current world reclaimed. Like, how in a lot of churches, the ideology just seems to be that we're all going to be zapped up to heaven someday. Well, it seems likely that the message of the Bible is that when God made the earth, it said it was good, and he made Adam and Eve, and it was good. The idea is creation is being restored, and we're going to still be man or whatever, and woman. And then there'll still be the angels, and there'll still be the heavens and the earth. Maybe heaven's coming to earth. But nonetheless, it seems like it's not going to be a whole us floating in the sky thing, but more we're going to be grounded. You know what I mean? But that's beside the point. So point number one, as to what I think is maybe wrong with the Jehovah's Witness movement. Why the hell do they call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses? And I asked him this, and the guy didn't have a good answer for me. And this was several months into knowing him and talking to these folks. And there was a couple of them sitting at the table. And I was like, why don't you guys call yourselves Yahweh Witnesses? Because isn't that how it sounded when they said God's name back in the day? Wasn't it Yahweh or something, or Yah or something? It wasn't Jehovah, to our understanding. In fact, didn't they not even have like those vowels or whatever? They wouldn't really have that in their language, the whole J thing or something. Look into it. But after delving in a bit, I found that Jehovah is actually a transliteration to Yahweh or whatever. So it's not even how it sounded back when they said it. So why the hell are they going around claiming that their movement is, the embodiment of God's name, when that's not even how it sounded when you said it? If you're going to go as far as to have that be a big talking point, like, oh yeah, God's name is Jehovah, and that's the name of our movement, then why not actually make it sound like what it sounded when they said it? It's not how it sounded. If Jehovah is a transliteration, and it's not like the vowel sounds and all that, then why do they call themselves that? They should have called themselves Yahweh Witness. So that's a bit, it's like, okay, you're going as far as to say, oh yeah, you hold the name of God, but you're not even, you go halfway, but then you don't go all the way with that, in which case it's misleading to people, because then all of a sudden they think that's how it sounded when they said it back in the day, but it's not. And so why are you going around representing that to everybody? It's weird. Well, it's more than just weird. It should be a red flag, because that's deceiving. You know what I'm saying? It's deceiving, and he didn't really have an answer for that. So Jehovah's not really how it sounded when they said it. All right? People say it sounded like Yahweh or Yah or something like that. I don't know. Point number 2 as to why the Jehovah's Witness movement is really sketchy. And this might be the biggest one. So I went to a few of their things, right? Their meetings or whatever. Or their church services, which is on like Thursday or something. That's another sketchy thing, is I went to this place and it encouraged people to get on welfare. It was like, well, what if your job doesn't tolerate, like they said this in the video, right? And these videos are like nationwide with the movement, because it all comes from that watchtower in New York, right? Which should be concerning. What the hell are these leaders doing in New York, hanging out in some watchtower? I mean, I know they're probably not literally hanging out, but that's what it's called. It's called the Watchtower, this thing in New York. You know, that's sketchy. You know, who's actually running the show? I mean, if you think about it, New York, are you kidding me? You guys can read between the lines if you want of who might have made up this movement in that case. And all I got to say is they weren't big fans of Jesus. But I went to their ceremony or their church service. I attended 2 of them. And one of those 2 times, they shared this video that they're sharing nationwide. And it really encouraged people to get on welfare. I was like, what the hell? So this is kind of going entirely in the face of the whole essence of Jesus's movement, where you don't become a burden to others. Where in the book of Acts, it goes on about how if you don't work or whatever, you shouldn't eat. You know what I mean? And how the Christian shouldn't be a burden at all to society. They should only be a benefit to it. Is what it goes on about in the book of Acts and Jesus' teachings. You know what I'm saying? And to help the community, help the widows, help the orphans, help the local community. And what's crazy is most churches, at least to an extent, do that. Like other churches that aren't this whole Jehovah's Witness thing. They'll have like their community outreaches. They'll have like their little food things. You know, they'll have their things where they go out and they'll help rebuild hurricane relief. Maybe Jehovah's Witnesses do that. I don't really know, but they're more integrated in the community, your common church, than this one. Because this one, the money for the donations, it's this locked box at the back, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't ask for offerings. But I mean, that's where the offerings are, and everybody who goes to church, they know that they should give offerings. So I don't know how much of a difference it actually makes, but it's over by the doors when you exit, and it's this big box. And all the donations that you put in there go to this watchtower place in New York. It's like, what the hell? So it's all going away from the local community when it's supposed to be going into it. You see what I'm saying? So they're stealing a bunch of Christians in the area who otherwise would be going to these regular churches that are helping the community at least a little bit in some occasions. And they're stealing these people, making them into disciples where all the money goes out away from the community. It's crazy. It goes to this freaking watchtower, you know? That's really sketchy. I mean, what do you guys think about that? And like I said, that video, it encouraged people to get on welfare. There was like this episode of a guy who was like, oh yeah, my work didn't allow for me to have Thursdays off. So they put their little Sunday service in the middle of the damn week. They put it on Thursday so that they know it's not going to work out with a bunch of work endeavors or whatever. I don't know why they do it on Thursday. But then this guy in the video, well, that's probably why. It's to screw up the economy, because that's what it does. And this guy in the video was a representative of that, because he said that his job didn't let him take Thursday off. So he prayed to God, or to Jehovah about it. You know, that's what they keep calling him. They prayed to Jehovah about it. And then his family felt at peace, like Jehovah gave them an answer to just quit his freaking job and Jehovah will take care of the rest. And then he literally said how he got on welfare benefits. Isn't that weird? It's going entirely against the whole book of Acts and the teachings of Jesus. It's just crazy. Point number 3. This one, I think a lot of you guys are going to disagree with, so I'm not going to go very much on it. But the whole millennial reign thing, yeah, I thought that was a good thing how they introduced that to me. And then I look it up in the Bible, and sure enough, it's there. Look into Revelation 20. When the 1,000-year reign is over of Christ, Satan will be let loose for a little while to deceive the nations. And of course, these Jehovah's Witnesses, they say, oh yeah, that's still to come. Like they introduce you to the idea, and then they integrate it in their theology that, oh yeah, it certainly hasn't happened yet. When, of course, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I've been questioning that. And there's a growing number of people who are like, we might be getting tricked here. And if Jesus said this generation will not pass until he comes, if Jesus said, even those who pierced me on the cross will see me coming back in the sky on my return. And if he said, you won't make it through all the towns of Israel before my return. Some of you will not taste death. I mean, look this stuff up. This is what he said to the people around him, the disciples. And to think that he was really meaning like thousands of years later or tens of thousands, who knows when the hell he's coming back, right? That's pretty deceiving. Do you think God would deceive the people? So, I mean, the idea is, oh yeah, what if it already happened? What if he did come back? If you guys look into that whole Josephus or Josephus, is that how you say it? He said 70 AD, look into 70 AD, and all this stuff that he said happened. And they said that then there's all this Tartaria, look up Tartaria, all over the world. These beautiful architectural structures, this and that. People say that there was a millennial reign. And that our timeline and everything has been kind of a lie. Well, it's been deceptively a lie. I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but I'm just saying it's sketchy how these Jehovah's Witnesses say, oh yeah, it's definitely going to come someday. And I know this goes against a lot of the fundamentals of modern day Christianity. To say, oh yeah, the millennial reign already happened and we're now in this season where Satan's been released for a little while to deceive the nations. I mean, if you look around, there might be a pretty good argument for that. You guys see what they're doing with the kids? In schools and media and entertainment, academia, in the workplace, just all around the world, the corruption of governments and everything else. If you guys looked around, you ever wonder if maybe Satan's running the show here, deceiving the nations? And of course, if that were the case, and it says in the Bible that happens after the millennial reign, then it seems like Jesus might be hidden away for a little while during this time, because how else the hell would Satan deceive all the nations of the world if Jesus was right in our face, bringing great healing and eternal life to everyone, you know what I mean? So it only makes sense that he must be away for a little while when Satan's been given authority by God to deceive the nations. So that's kind of sketchy. How they on one hand, it's another one of those gatekeeping things, which is really interesting. This is probably why they call it the damn watchtower, because these are gatekeepers, They'll tell you, oh yeah, there's a millennial reign, but it certainly hasn't happened yet. And then they'll tell you, oh yeah, we're Jehovah's Witnesses, even though that's not really how God sounded, but they won't admit to that. They'll just be like, yeah, that's God's name, that's how it sounded. So they're claiming it. And if this really is run by those folks who hate Jesus, if you know what I mean, then they probably certainly wouldn't want this little group that they made up for all the Christians to follow, to actually call the God of their Bible by the name of how it sounded. You know what I mean? They wouldn't want them to be called themselves the Yahweh Witnesses, if that were the case. So I don't know. But isn't it weird? And then another thing is they tell them all not to vote. I mean, it's just, on one hand, yeah, you could say, oh, Iceman, it's same wings, it's the two wings of the same damn bird, politics. But what about when a rogue is thrown into the mix or something? Somebody who's shaking everything up, somebody who slips through the cracks, which might be what we're seeing going on right now. I mean, it says it's a biblical truth that God brings down and raises up leaders for nations. You know what I mean? He tears down and he builds up. And he's always utilized vessels of imperfection. You know what I mean? King David, right? The most renowned king in the Bible. An adulterer. Even had a guy's or a chick's husband killed so he could continue having affairs with her. I mean, the guy was like a murderer. Hired a hitman. All right. And this was like the most renowned leader of the Bible. So, I mean, he uses imperfect people, to say the least. But that's just another sketchy thing, is, okay, you guys aren't going to vote. You're definitely not going to give your money to the local community. You're going to send it all to New York. And this like head of this whole thing is going to like run the show. It's just, what the hell's going on here? But let me know in the comments your thoughts on these matters. Like this video if you will, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace be with you.